You're just 6 months away from a life you won't recognize if you decide right now. You can be stronger, clearer, richer, calmer, more confident than you have ever been in 6 months from today. Or you could be just the same habits, same excuses, same frustration. Nothing happens by accident. Everything happens by decision. This audiobook is not motivation, it's a contract. 6 months of discipline will rewrite your identity. Stay with me, and at the end of this, you will know precisely what to do, what to cut, and who you must become. Let's get started.
Chapter 1. Stop waiting for motivation. Build systems that don't care how you feel. Most people are stuck because they are waiting to feel motivated, waiting to feel confident, waiting to feel ready. They believe that one day they'll wake up different, energized, focused, unstoppable. But that day never comes, and it never comes for one simple reason. Motivation is a feeling, and feelings are unreliable. You cannot build a new life on something that disappears the moment discomfort shows up. Here's the truth you need to hear early. You do not rise to the level of your motivation. You fall to the level of your systems. That's the key. Motivation comes and goes. It depends on sleep, stress, mood, and outside validation. Systems don't care. Systems show up whether you feel good or not. And the people who actually change their lives understand this difference faster than everyone else. You have a choice. You always have a choice. You can keep waiting for emotional permission, or you can build a structure that forces progress even on your worst days. You don't need their permission. You don't need encouragement. You don't need to feel inspired. What you need is a system that removes decision-making from the process. Most people confuse movement with progress. They talk a lot. They plan endlessly. They explain their intentions. They apologize for not starting yet. But winners play a different game. They execute quietly. They understand one simple rule: do, don't explain. Act, don't apologize. Win, don't wait. That phrase is not motivation, it's a standard, and standards change behavior. Look at elite athletes. They don't wake up every morning asking themselves if they feel like training. Training is scheduled, it's automatic, it's non-negotiable. The same is true for top CEOs and high performers. They don't wait for motivation to make hard decisions or do uncomfortable work. Their calendars, processes, and routines decide for them. Emotion is removed from execution. Even ordinary people who quietly win follow the same principle. The ones who get in shape, build skills, and improve their finances are not special, they're systematic. They stopped letting emotions run their lives, and that's exactly what you must learn to do. Many people think discipline is a personality trait. Either you have it or you don't. That belief keeps people stuck for years. Discipline is not who you are. Discipline is what your system demands. If your system is weak, you'll look weak. If your system is strong, you'll look disciplined, even when you're tired, stressed, or bored. It's not about laziness. It's not about talent. It's not about motivation. It's about structure. Your life right now is producing exactly what your systems allow. Your health, your income, your confidence, your stress levels, all outputs, all predictable. Change the system and the output must change. That's not philosophy, that's mechanics. That's the key. You have a choice. You can keep blaming your mood, or you can build a system that doesn't care about your mood. One keeps you trapped, the other changes everything in 6 months. Start simple. Pick one area of your life that actually matters, just one. Fitness, work, learning, money. Then reduce it to the smallest daily action that moves the needle. Not something heroic, not something impressive, something repeatable. 20 minutes of movement, 1 page written, 1 skill practiced, 1 expense tracked. Now lock that action to a specific time, same time, every day. Not when you feel like it, not when you have energy. A time. When the time arrives, the action happens. No negotiation, no debate, no emotion. This is how systems work. Think about brushing your teeth. You don't wait for motivation to do it. You don't negotiate with yourself. You don't ask how you feel. You do it because it's built in. That's the level of automatic execution you're aiming for in the areas that change your life. Here's where most people fail. They want validation before results. They want confidence before action. They want recognition before consistency. But confidence doesn't come from talking. Confidence comes from evidence. Action builds confidence faster than words ever will. You don't become confident and then act. You act and confidence follows, quietly. That's why the most dangerous people in the room are often the quietest. They're not explaining themselves. They're stacking proof. Do, don't explain. Act, don't apologize. Win, don't wait. Repeat it until it starts to make you uncomfortable. Discomfort is a signal that you're breaking an old pattern. Every time you wait to feel ready, you reinforce the identity of someone who quits. Every time you act without motivation, you reinforce the identity of someone who finishes. Identity is built by behavior, not intention. That's the key. You don't need a perfect plan. You need a boring system you can repeat when you're tired. That's how 6 months change everything. Not intensity, consistency, not emotional highs, mechanical execution. Some days you will hate the process. Good. That means you're no longer controlled by your feelings. You have a choice. You can let emotions dictate your actions, or you can let systems dictate your outcomes. One leads to regret, the other leads to transformation. No one is coming to save you. No one is going to hand you motivation. No one is going to clap every time you do what you're supposed to do. You don't need their permission. You don't need approval. You don't need an audience. You need a system. Build it once. Follow it daily. Let time do the work. 6 months of this will make you unrecognizable, not because you felt good, but because you showed up anyway. You've stopped waiting. You've replaced emotion with structure. Now it's time to look at something even more powerful than motivation and discipline combined. The invisible force shaping your behavior every single day. You've mastered internal execution. Now let's talk about the external forces controlling you. Chapter 2. Your environment is stronger than your willpower. Design it or be controlled by it. If willpower were enough, your life would already be different. You've wanted change for years. You've promised yourself things. You've started and stopped more than you can count. That alone proves something important. Willpower is not the problem. The real problem is that you're trying to win an internal battle while losing the external war around you. Your environment is shaping your behavior far more than your intentions ever will. That's not weakness, that's reality. Humans are responsive creatures. We adapt to what surrounds us, and if you don't consciously design your environment, it will design you, slowly, quietly, and without asking for your permission. That's the key.
You have a choice. You can keep relying on self-control, or you can build an environment that makes self-control unnecessary. One drains you every day, the other works for you every day. Look at your surroundings honestly. The food in your house, the apps on your phone, the people you talk to, the noise you consume. None of this is neutral. Everything is training you. Everything is nudging you towards a version of yourself, either stronger or weaker. Most people try to change themselves without changing their environment. That's like trying to stay dry while standing in the rain. You can fight it for a while, but eventually you lose. Not because you're broken, but because you ignored the system around you. High performers understand this deeply. They don't rely on discipline alone. They design their surroundings to make the right behavior easier and the wrong behavior harder. Athletes don't keep junk food in their kitchens. Writers don't work in rooms full of distractions. Serious people remove friction from progress and add friction to weakness. You don't need more willpower. You need fewer temptations. That's the key. Start with your physical environment. Your space should reflect who you're becoming, not who you used to be. If your room is chaotic, your mind will be chaotic. If your workspace is distracting, your focus will collapse. Clean it, simplify it, remove anything that pulls you backward. This is not about aesthetics, it's about control. Then look at your digital environment. This is where most people lose the battle without realizing it. Your phone is shaping your attention.
Chapter 3. Cut the noise. Most advice is weak because most people are average. Most people are not failing because they lack intelligence or potential. They are failing because they are listening to too many voices. Every direction they turn, someone has an opinion. Friends, family, social media, podcasts, comments, trends, everyone is talking, and most of it is noise. The result is confusion, hesitation, and paralysis. When your mind is crowded, action slows down. And when action slows down, progress dies. That's the key. Noise doesn't announce itself as a problem. It disguises itself as research, staying informed, or being open-minded. But in reality, noise is anything that pulls you away from execution, anything that replaces action with thinking, anything that makes you doubt a decision you already knew was right. Most people are not underinformed, they are overexposed. You have a choice. You can keep consuming opinions, or you can start producing results. One makes you feel busy, the other changes your life. Here is the hard truth most people avoid. Most advice is weak because most people are average. They are not living exceptional lives. They are not disciplined. They are not consistent. They are not building what you want to build. Yet their voices are the loudest because average feels familiar and familiar feels safe. But safe does not create growth. High performers understand something most people never learn. They guard their attention aggressively. They know that attention is a finite resource, and whatever you feed it will shape your reality. That's why they don't listen to everyone. They don't ask for endless opinions. They don't crowd their minds with unnecessary input. They choose carefully who they learn from, and when they decide, they move. That's power. Most people do the opposite. They make a decision, then immediately look for reassurance. They ask 10 people. They scroll for hours. They search for confirmation that the path won't be uncomfortable. And by the time they finish listening, their energy is gone. Their certainty is gone. The moment passes. You don't need their permission. Every time you ask for approval, you give away authority. Every time you overconsume advice, you delay execution. And execution is the only thing that creates clarity. Not more thinking, not more planning, not more opinions. Action. That's the key. Social media has amplified this problem to an extreme. You are exposed to thousands of opinions every day, most of them unearned and unfiltered. You compare your private struggles to someone else's public highlights. You absorb standards that are unrealistic or artificial. Slowly, without noticing, your confidence erodes. You begin to doubt your pace, your path, and your decisions. You cannot hear your own voice in a crowded room, and right now, most people live in constant mental noise. If you want clarity, you must create silence. Silence does not mean ignorance, it means selectivity. It means choosing a small number of credible sources, learning what you need, then closing the door and doing the work. Information without execution is distraction. Knowledge without application is procrastination. It's not about lack of intelligence, it's about discipline. That's the key. You must practice intentional ignorance. Not everything deserves your attention. Not every trend matters. Not every opinion is relevant to your life. If it does not directly support the person you are becoming, it is noise, and noise has a cost. Noise costs you time because it keeps you consuming instead of creating. Noise costs you focus because it fragments your attention. Noise costs you belief because it replaces certainty with doubt. Over time, noise makes strong people hesitant and capable people passive. You have a choice. You can keep letting external voices shape your decisions, or you can commit to your path and move forward without applause. Real growth is quiet. Real progress is often lonely, and real confidence comes from doing the work repeatedly when no one is watching. This is why winners are often misunderstood. They don't explain themselves. They don't argue with opinions. They don't react to every voice. They are too busy executing. They understand that results speak louder than explanations ever will. Do, don't explain. Act, don't apologize. Win, don't wait. Repeat that until it becomes uncomfortable. Discomfort is a sign that you are cutting ties with old habits of validation seeking. Understand this clearly. Every time you reduce noise, your focus sharpens. Every time you reduce input, your output improves. Every time you stop listening to average voices, you give space for exceptional behavior to emerge. That's the key. You've learned how to stop waiting for motivation. You've learned how to design an environment that supports discipline. Now you've learned how to protect your mind from distraction and weak advice. The next step is deeper, because discipline is not punishment. It is not restriction. It is not suffering. Discipline is something else entirely. And once you understand it, your entire relationship with effort will change. You've cut the noise. Now it's time to build self-respect through action.
Chapter 5. You don't need more time, you need fewer priorities. Most people believe their problem is time. They say they're too busy, too overwhelmed, too stretched thin. They think that if they just had more hours in the day, everything would fall into place. That belief is comforting and completely wrong. Time is not the issue. Priorities are. You don't need more time. You need fewer priorities. That's the key. Everyone has the same 24 hours. The difference is not availability. The difference is focus. When everything feels important, nothing moves forward. When your attention is divided, your progress is diluted. Most people are not exhausted from doing too much of what matters. They're exhausted from doing too much of what doesn't. You have a choice. You can continue saying yes to everything and wonder why nothing changes, or you can start saying no and finally make progress. One leads to constant motion without results. The other leads to momentum.
Busyness is often a disguise for avoidance. Staying busy feels productive, but it keeps you from confronting the few actions that actually matter. You answer emails, attend meetings, scroll endlessly, handle small tasks, yet the important work remains untouched. At the end of the day, you're tired, but nothing meaningful has moved. That's not productivity, that's distraction. High performers understand something simple but uncomfortable. Progress requires sacrifice. You cannot do everything. You were never meant to. Trying to balance too many priorities guarantees mediocrity in all of them. Focus creates excellence. Division creates stagnation. That's the key. Look at your daily life honestly. How many tasks fill your schedule that don't directly move you toward the life you want? How many obligations exist only because you never question them? How many commitments drain your energy without giving anything back? Time does not disappear, it leaks through low-impact decisions repeated daily. You don't need their permission to simplify. One of the most powerful skills you can develop is the ability to choose one thing and let the rest wait. Not forever, just not now. Growth requires seasons of imbalance. There will be times when one priority dominates your attention. That's not unhealthy, that's necessary. Most people fail because they try to grow everything at once: career, health, relationships, social life, hobbies, entertainment. They spread themselves thin, then blame burnout. But burnout often comes from lack of progress, not lack of rest. That's the key. Decide what matters most in this season of your life, one or two areas, that's it. Then align your time with that decision. If your calendar doesn't reflect your priorities are imaginary. This requires honesty. You may have to disappoint people. You may have to step back from certain activities. You may have to accept that not everything will move forward at the same pace. That discomfort is the price of focus. You have a choice. You can keep protecting everyone else's expectations, or you can protect your future. One keeps you liked, the other makes you effective. Understand this clearly. Saying no is not selfish. Saying no is strategic. Every no you frees energy for a yes that matters. Every boundary you set strengthens your direction, and direction is more powerful than motivation. That's the key. Start by identifying one daily non-negotiable action tied to your main priority. Just one. Protect it fiercely. Schedule your day around it, not after everything else. Treat it as an appointment you cannot miss, because missing it costs you more than you realize. When you honor that one priority daily, something shifts. You stop feeling scattered. You stop feeling rushed. You stop feeling behind. Even if other areas move slower, you feel grounded because progress is happening where it matters most. Most people chase balance. Winners chase alignment. Balance sounds nice, but alignment changes lives. You don't need to do more. You need to do less, but better. Less noise, less obligation, less distraction, and more depth where it counts. That's the key. When you simplify your priorities, discipline becomes easier, focus becomes sharper, decisions become clearer. You stop wasting energy deciding what to do next because you already know. This is how 6 months create transformation, not by adding more tasks, but by removing what doesn't serve you, not by stretching yourself thinner, but by concentrating your effort. You've learned how to build systems. You've learned how to shape your environment. You've learned how to cut noise. You've learned how to respect yourself through discipline. Now you've learned how to protect your time by choosing fewer priorities. The next challenge is deeper, because even when you focus, there's something most people can't tolerate: stillness. You've simplified your direction. Now it's time to face discomfort without escaping it. Chapter 6. Become comfortable being bored. That's where growth lives. Most people are not addicted to pleasure. They are addicted to stimulation. Silence makes them uncomfortable. Stillness makes them restless. The moment boredom appears, they reach for their phone, open a tab, scroll, snack, distract themselves, and without realizing it, they train their mind to run from the exact state where growth begins. Boredom is not the enemy. Boredom is the doorway. That's the key. Every meaningful transformation requires sustained focus, and sustained focus feels boring at first. There is no dopamine rush in repetition. There is no excitement in showing up daily to do the same small actions. That's why most people quit, not because it's too hard, but because it's not entertaining. You have a choice. You can continue escaping boredom and stay average, or you can learn to sit with it and separate yourself from the crowd. One path feels comfortable now and painful later. The other feels uncomfortable now and powerful later. Modern life is designed to keep you distracted. Endless content, instant gratification, constant stimulation. Your brain is being trained to expect novelty every few seconds. As a result, anything that requires patience feels unbearable. Reading feels slow. Training feels dull. Working deeply feels heavy. But that discomfort is not a flaw, it's withdrawal. That's the key. High performers understand something simple but uncomfortable. The ability to tolerate boredom is a competitive advantage. When others quit because it's dull, they continue. When others seek stimulation, they seek mastery. And mastery is built in quiet, repetitive moments that no one applauds. Look at anyone who has achieved something meaningful. Athletes train without crowds. Writers write without praise. Builders work long before results are visible. There is nothing glamorous about the process. It's repetitive, it's lonely, it's boring, and that's why it works. Most people confuse boredom with lack of progress. In reality, boredom is often a sign that you're doing the right thing consistently. Progress doesn't always feel exciting. Often it feels monotonous. And the people who win are the ones who don't interpret boredom as a signal to stop. That's the key. You don't need constant motivation. You need tolerance for repetition. You need the ability to stay with a task even when it stops stimulating you emotionally. This is where discipline matures. This is where identity changes. Every time you resist the urge to escape boredom, you strengthen your focus. Every time you stay present instead of seeking distraction, you reclaim control over your attention. And attention is the real currency of your life. You have a choice. You can let your attention be hijacked by whatever is loud and easy, or you can deliberately place it where growth happens. One makes you reactive, the other makes you dangerous. Start small. Begin practicing boredom intentionally. Train without music. Work without notifications. Sit in silence for a few minutes each day without reaching for stimulation. At first, it will feel uncomfortable. Your mind will resist. That's normal. You are breaking a dependency. Don't run from that discomfort. Stay with it. That's the key. When you stop escaping boredom, something powerful happens. Your mind slows down. Your thoughts become clearer. Your ability to concentrate increases. Tasks that once felt overwhelming become manageable. You stop needing external excitement because internal stability begins to form. Most people never experience this because they never stay still long enough. They confuse constant movement with progress, but real growth often looks like quiet consistency. Understand this clearly. Boredom is not emptiness. Boredom is space, and space is where improvement happens. The reason people fail to learn new skills, build businesses, improve their health, or deepen their thinking is not because they lack talent, it's because they lack patience. They quit before the compound effect has time to work. That's the key. 6 months of boring, consistent effort will outperform 6 years of scattered enthusiasm, but only if you stay, only if you don't escape, only if you stop needing every day to feel exciting. You don't need to be entertained by your goals, you need to be committed to them. This is especially important when things start to work. Ironically, progress often becomes more boring over time. The novelty fades. The challenge becomes routine. That's where most people self-sabotage. They crave a new beginning instead of respecting the process.
Chapter 7. Identity comes first. Actions follow who you decide to be.
Most people think change happens by setting goals or forcing behaviors. They believe if they just act a certain way long enough, they will eventually become someone new. That's a mistake. Action alone does not create transformation. Real change begins with identity. Who you decide to be drives every decision, every habit, every outcome. Without an identity anchor, action is fragile, inconsistent, and temporary. That's the key. You have a choice. You can act randomly, hoping behaviors stick, or you can decide who you are at a fundamental level and let your actions naturally align. One path keeps you reactive and inconsistent. The other makes progress inevitable. One path waits for inspiration. The other demands alignment. Identity is not self-esteem. Identity is not motivation. Identity is the internal rulebook that guides your behavior even when no one is watching. When you define yourself first, your actions become automatic. They no longer rely on willpower or emotion. They follow the person you have decided to be. Most people live as someone else's version of themselves. They adopt labels, expectations, and standards imposed by society, peers, or past failures. They say, "I want to be successful," but they never define what successful means to them personally. They say, "I want to be fit," but they never decide, "I am the kind of person who trains and eats with discipline." Without that internal definition, change is temporary. It is borrowed from external pressures and fades the moment pressure eases. That's why identity comes first. High performers reverse this process. Before building new routines, before acquiring skills, they first commit to a clear identity. I am disciplined. I am a person who finishes what I start. I am someone who prioritizes growth. Then, every action is a vote for that identity. Every habit, every choice, every small win compounds because it reinforces who they have decided to be. You have a choice. Every action you take today is either a vote for your current identity or a vote for the person you want to become. Most people make this choice unconsciously. They vote for the old identity over and over. That's why results stagnate. That's why frustration builds. That's why motivation fades. It's not enough to try harder. Trying harder without identity alignment is like pushing a car in the wrong direction. You burn energy. You get nowhere. Alignment between who you are and what you do eliminates friction. You act with authority, confidence, and consistency. That's the key. Start small. Decide a single defining attribute that will govern your behavior. It could be discipline, consistency, courage, focus, or patience. Declare it internally. Then begin voting for that identity through repeated actions. Skip excuses, skip negotiations, skip debating whether it's convenient. Every single time you act in alignment with that identity, you reinforce it. Every time you fail, you must correct immediately. Do not allow small compromises to define you. Most people underestimate how identity shapes behavior. They focus on goals, weight lost, money earned, skills acquired, but ignore the invisible foundation that sustains it. Identity is invisible, yet it is what makes impossible feats routine for some and unattainable for others. Identity determines who shows up when the reward is delayed, when the task is tedious, when boredom sets in, when nobody notices. This is why so many programs fail. People follow steps mechanically, but never shift internally. They remain someone trying to change, not someone who has changed. Action without identity is like a ship without a rudder. It moves, but it drifts, vulnerable to every current, every storm, every distraction. That's why identity comes first. You do not become disciplined and then act. You decide you are disciplined, and then your actions follow. You do not become focused and then work. You decide you are focused, and every choice flows from that internal decision. You do not wait for confidence, motivation, or courage. You decide your identity, and the rest executes automatically.
That's the key. Notice this, identity is cumulative. Every day, every action is a vote for who you are. Small compromises add up. Small victories add up. Over 6 months, consistent identity votes completely reshape your life. The person you are at the end of that period will be unrecognizable compared to who you were at the start. But only if you commit first to defining yourself and second to voting daily through action. You have a choice. You can let your identity drift based on external pressures, opinions, and moods, or you can decide first, act second, and anchor your behavior in certainty. One path leads to stagnation, excuses, and regret. One path leads to unstoppable progress, clarity, and self-trust. Every time you make a decision aligned with your identity, repeat this internally. I am the person who does this. Not sometimes, not occasionally, always. Let the words become a signal to your nervous system, a blueprint for habit, a standard for behavior. Repetition enforces belief. Belief reinforces action. Action strengthens identity. Most people fail because they act without an identity anchor. They hope consistency will build identity. It doesn't. Identity must come first. The actions will follow automatically. You've built systems, you've shaped your environment, you've cut the noise, you've embraced discipline and focus, you've tolerated boredom. Now you define who you are. Once identity is internalized, all remaining chapters, the mastery of focus, relationships, execution, and decision-making, become easier because you are no longer negotiating with motivation or circumstance. You act because it is who you are. You don't wait. You don't hesitate. You do.
Chapter 9. Decisions define destiny. Indecision is the silent killer of execution. Most people underestimate the power of decisions. They act as if life is random, as if circumstances dictate results, as if progress depends on luck or opportunity. But the truth is far simpler and far harsher. Your life is the sum of the decisions you make or fail to make every single day. Indecision is the silent killer of execution, the invisible tax on progress, and the reason most people stay stuck. That's the key. You have a choice. You can postpone difficult choices, hoping clarity will arrive, or you can decide quickly, decisively, and act immediately. One path delays your life, the other accelerates it. Every great performer, every successful entrepreneur, every person you admire understands this principle deeply. They do not allow indecision to linger. They make a decision, adjust if necessary, and move forward relentlessly. Indecision comes from fear, fear of failure, fear of looking foolish, fear of making the wrong choice. But here's the truth. All decisions are imperfect. Every choice has risk. Every action has uncertainty. Waiting for a perfect answer is waiting for a lie. It will never come. Perfection is a trap. Execution built on hesitation produces nothing. That's the key. Every decision you delay costs you energy. It fragments focus, consumes mental bandwidth, and creates stress. Each maybe or I'll think about it is a vote for stagnation. Every time you fail to act, you reinforce the identity of someone who avoids responsibility. Conversely, every decision acted upon strengthens your confidence, sharpens your focus, and compounds into results. You have a choice. You can let fear dictate your life, or you can make choices based on clarity, purpose, and identity. One leads to frustration, the other leads to progress. Decision-making is not about being perfect, it is about being decisive. It is about applying your standards consistently, not waiting for conditions to be flawless. When you know who you are and what matters, decisions become easier because your identity guides them. You act in alignment with your values, priorities, and goals. You no longer debate small things endlessly. You no longer waste energy on trivial choices. That's the key.
Most people make decisions reactively, emotionally, or based on the opinions of others. They ask everyone around them what to do. They search for reassurance. They overthink. Meanwhile, their life moves past them. You cannot outsource your destiny. You cannot delegate your courage. You must decide and execute for yourself. Look at high performers. They understand the compounding effect of good decisions. One decisive move compounds into a week of productivity, a month of growth, a year of transformation. One bad decision compounds into wasted time, energy, and momentum. That's why mastery over decision-making is essential. Small, consistent, smart choices are more valuable than sporadic brilliance. You have a choice. You can ignore your decisions, letting chance dictate your outcomes, or you can take control, choosing deliberately every day. One path fosters mediocrity, the other builds excellence. Here's the next truth. Fast decisions build clarity. Indecision breeds confusion. Every time you hesitate unnecessarily, you weaken your mental acuity. Every time you act decisively, you reinforce your identity, sharpen your focus, and train your mind to trust itself. Confidence is not a feeling, it is a habit formed by repeated, decisive action. That's the key. You must learn to embrace the discomfort of making hard decisions. Avoidance feels safe, but it is poison. Every time you defer a decision, you teach yourself to depend on external circumstances for courage. Every time you act decisively, even imperfectly, you build internal authority. Action produces clarity. Clarity produces confidence. Confidence produces momentum. Momentum produces results. You have a choice. You can remain paralyzed by fear, or you can become someone who decides and acts every single day. One path is predictable, the other is unstoppable. Decision-making also requires commitment. Once you decide, you must act. Reconsidering too often, second-guessing every move, or waiting for validation dilutes effectiveness. You do not need approval. You do not need consensus. You do not need certainty. You need clarity about your identity, your goals, and your priorities. Then act. Fast, relentlessly, without hesitation. Most people overcomplicate decision-making. They think every choice must be perfect. The truth is that clarity comes from action, not deliberation. The sooner you move, the sooner feedback arrives. The sooner you adjust, the sooner you learn. Execution is the reward for decision-making. Indecision is the tax on procrastination. That's the key. Start today. Identify the areas where you have been postponing decisions. Commit to deciding within a strict time frame. Once you decide, act immediately. Don't debate. Don't justify. Don't hesitate. Let the decision shape your action, and let action compound into results. The more decisive you become, the more confident, focused, and unstoppable you will feel. Remember this, every choice you make or fail to make is a vote for the life you live. Small decisions compound, big decisions amplify. Momentum is created by repeated, decisive action aligned with identity and priorities. Indecision destroys both momentum and self-trust. You've built systems, shaped your environment, cut noise, embraced discipline, simplified priorities, tolerated boredom, defined your identity, executed relentlessly, and made decisive choices. Now it all compounds, and when it compounds, the end result is extraordinary.